very warm welcome to you. It is a true kindness that you have chosen to spend your time here, in this quiet sanctuary made of words and gentle sounds, a place designed for peaceful respite. Our story tonight is intended to be a soft blanket for your mind, helping to quiet the day and invite a feeling of deep and easy contentment. If this story brings you comfort, a simple like or a kind comment is always a joy to see. And subscribing ensures you will always find your way back to this restful corner. Tonight we will be visiting the Vale of Murmurs, a hidden place where the air itself holds onto the warmth of old kindnesses. Step into a world where light is always soft, where the ground is springy and silent beneath your feet, and where the air hums with the gentle echoes of happy memories. Here you will find a stillness so profound that it can be carried with you long after the story ends, a perfect respite to guide you toward a night of truly peaceful sleep. Chapter 1. The Threshold of Murmurs. It is a wonderful thing, surely, to know when one is approaching a place of true peace. For Silas, this knowing began not with a sight or a sound, but with a feeling, a gentle change in the character of the air. He had been walking a long, dusty track for much of the day, a path like any other, until it sloped downward into a cleft between two soft, rolling hills. Here the world seemed to take a slow, deep breath. The trees that grew on either side were of a kind he had never seen before. Their bark was the color of pale cream, smooth to the touch, and their vast spade-shaped leaves formed a canopy so complete that the bright sun of the afternoon was softened into a gentle, pearlescent glow that illuminated everything evenly, leaving no sharp shadows. The most curious change, however, was in the sound of the world. The cheerful chirping of the birds he had been listening to for miles seemed to fade, not abruptly, but as if their songs were being gently absorbed by the leaves overhead. His own footsteps, which had crunched with a steady rhythm on the open path, became hushed upon the dark, springy earth that now carpeted the way forward. A profound quiet began to settle around him, a quiet that was more than a mere absence of noise. It was a presence in itself, a feeling as tangible as a soft, weighted blanket being draped carefully over his shoulders, easing a tension he had not even been aware he was carrying. The scent of the air changed, too, losing the dusty heat of the trail and taking on the clean, almost sweet fragrance of the pale leaves and the rich, damp smell of fertile, undisturbed soil. He paused for a moment, simply to stand within this threshold of tranquility. The air against his skin felt different, thicker somehow, and it seemed to hum with a low, resonant vibration that was almost too deep to be heard. It was a feeling, a gentle thrumming he could perceive in the bones of his chest, a comforting and steady pulse, like the slow heartbeat of the land itself. He took a long, slow breath, and the air he drew in felt clean and nourishing, carrying with it a sense of ancient, settled calm. All thoughts of his long journey, of where he had come from and where he was going, seemed to dissolve into this peaceful, humming stillness, leaving only the simple, pleasant sensation of being present in this remarkable place. Silas continued his walk, his movements becoming slower, more deliberate, as if to match the unhurried pace of the vale itself. The path meandered gently, a dark ribbon winding through the pale trunks of the great trees. Here and there he saw clusters of small cup-shaped flowers growing close to the ground, their petals a soft, luminous white that seemed to gather the dim light. He reached down to touch one, its surface feeling cool and smooth, like polished wood. They gave off no scent that he could discern. yet their quiet presence added to the feeling of deep and abiding peace that permeated everything around him. The gentle thrumming in the air remained constant, a soothing companion to his silent walk. He noticed small motes of light drifting lazily through the air, like dust caught in a sunbeam, except there were no sunbeams here. They were points of pale, golden illumination, and they moved with a slow, wandering grace that was utterly mesmerizing to watch. They seemed to be a natural part of the atmosphere, swirling in gentle eddies when a faint current of air stirred the leaves high above. Silas watched them, his focus narrowing to their silent, drifting dance, and he felt his own breathing fall into an even slower, more restful rhythm. He felt no need to understand what they were. It was enough simply to witness their gentle beauty, to accept them as part of the Vale's singular magic. The path widened slightly, opening into a small clearing. In the center stood a single immense tree, even larger than the others, its pale branches reaching up like open arms. At its base, the ground was covered in a thick carpet of deep green, low-growing foliage that looked wonderfully soft. The feeling of peace was stronger here, the hum in the air more pronounced, and the gentle golden motes of light were more numerous, clustering thickly around the ancient trunk. It felt like the very heart of the quiet, a place of immense serenity and welcome. It seemed to invite rest, to offer a place of solace from a world that was often too loud and too hurried. Silas felt a powerful sense of having arrived. This was the place he had been seeking, though he had not known what form it would take. It was a place woven from quietude and soft light, a sanctuary where the world fell away, leaving only a profound and gentle calm. He felt his shoulders, which had been tight from his long walk, finally release their hold completely, and a feeling of deep, contented ease spread through him. He walked to the great tree, the soft ground cover yielding gently under his weight, a silent welcome. He sat down, leaning his back against the smooth, cool bark of the ancient tree. The touch was grounding, the thick foliage beneath him a comfortable cushion. Closing his eyes, he focused only on the sensations of the Vale, the soft, humming air against his skin, the clean scent of the earth and leaves, and the feeling of the deep, resonant pulse of the world vibrating gently through the trunk at his back. Here, at the threshold of Murmurs, Silas let out a slow, quiet sigh of his own, a breath of pure contentment that was immediately and gently absorbed into the profound silence of the Vale. Chapter 2. The Weaver of Warmth. After a time of restful stillness, a new scent began to weave its way through the clean air of the Vale, a fragrance that spoke of simple creature comforts. It was the warm, inviting scent of baking spices, of cinnamon and sweet herbs, and it drew Silas gently from his quiet contemplation. He opened his eyes and saw that, nestled amongst a stand of the pale barked trees, was a soft, inviting light, the kind of warm, steady glow that promises shelter and kindness. His curiosity, which was always a gentle and unhurried thing, prompted him to rise and follow the scent and the light, his steps still silent on the yielding ground. The dwelling was as much a part of the Vale as the trees themselves. It was a small, rounded structure built from the same pale wood as the surrounding trunks, with a roof covered in the same thick, living foliage that grew on the forest floor. There were no sharp corners, only soft, curving lines, and the warm light he had seen spilled from a single, large, circular window. The scent of baking was stronger here, and it mingled with the smell of dry wood smoke, a fragrance that carried with it the promise of a warm hearth. The gentle humming of the veil was present here too, seeming to cling to the walls of the small home like ivy. As he drew near, the rounded wooden door opened with a soft click, and a woman stepped out, her expression one of serene welcome. She was older, with kind eyes the color of warm honey, and long silver hair tied back with a simple leather cord. She moved with an unhurried grace that seemed perfectly in tune with the rhythm of the veil. "Welcome, traveler," she said, and her voice was as soft and resonant as the air itself, a gentle murmur that was immediately calming to hear. "I am Nora. I felt your quiet arrival. Please come in and share a cup of tea." There was no surprise in her greeting, only a simple, open-hearted acceptance. Silas stepped across the threshold and into a room filled with warmth and a profound sense of peace. A small fire crackled happily in a smooth clay hearth, its flames casting a dancing golden light on the curved wooden walls. The air was thick with the comforting aromas of tea, cinnamon, and the pleasant, slightly sweet smell of beeswax. All around the room were tapestries of incredible softness, hanging from the walls and draped over simple wooden furniture. They shimmered with a faint inner light, woven with threads that seemed to hold the same pale golden glow as the motes that drifted through the veil's air. It was a place of deep, encompassing comfort. Nora gestured for him to sit in a comfortable-looking chair, its seat cushioned with what felt like a wonderfully soft sheepskin. She moved about the room with a gentle efficiency, pouring hot water from a kettle that hummed over the fire into 2 earthenware mugs. She handed one to Silas, and the warmth of it seeped into his palms, a pleasant and grounding sensation. The tea smelled of honey and something floral, a deeply calming fragrance. He took a sip, and the taste was just as comforting as its scent, a sweet, mellow flavor that seemed to spread a feeling of well-being through his entire chest. The warmth of the drink was like a pleasant memory taking root inside him. As they sat in companionable silence for a few moments, Silas felt his gaze drawn to the softly glowing tapestries. He reached out to touch the one nearest him, its texture unbelievably soft and fine, warmer than he expected. "They are beautiful," he said, his own voice sounding hushed in the quiet room. Nora smiled, a gentle expression that crinkled the corners of her eyes. "Thank you," she replied softly. "I weave them from the peace of this place. The veil, you see, holds on to things. Kind words, gentle deeds, happy moments. They do not simply vanish here. They linger." She explained then in her soft, murmuring voice that the hum he felt in the air, the patches of warmth he might feel on his skin, were echoes. They were the remnants of kindness, held safely by the veil for centuries. The glimmer motes, she added, were drawn to these echoes, making them visible. "It is a place of gentle memories," she said, her hands resting on the warm mug in her lap. "A place to listen and to feel." The simple truth of her words settled into Silas's heart with a feeling of profound rightness. He was not just in a quiet place. He was in a place made of quietness, a sanctuary built from generations of peace. Looking at the glowing tapestry again, Silas could now perceive it differently. The light within it was not just a trick of the firelight. It was a real, living warmth, the captured essence of 1,000 small, happy moments. Nora explained that the threads were spun from the fibers of a special plant that grew only in the deepest parts of the veil, a plant that absorbed the echoes from the very soil. "I simply weave the threads together," she said with a humble shrug. "The warmth is already there." He looked at this gentle weaver, at her serene face illuminated by the soft light of her hearth and her handiwork, and felt a deep sense of gratitude for having been led to this truly magical, truly peaceful home. Chapter 3. Learning to listen with the heart. The next morning, after a night of the most profound and restful sleep Silas had ever known, Nora offered to guide him deeper into the Vale. "There is more to this place than its quiet," she had said, her voice a warm and gentle invitation. "You must learn to listen with your heart." They set out from her small, rounded home, the air cool and sweet with the scent of the morning. The perpetual soft light of the Vale was unchanged, a steady, pearlescent glow that made the concept of time feel fluid and unimportant. They walked in a comfortable silence, their steps making no sound on the springy, dark ground cover. Nora led him away from the main path, following a barely there trail that wound between the immense, pale-barked trees. The background hum of the Vale was a constant soothing presence, a bed of sound upon which other, more subtle sensations could be found. She paused beside a small, perfectly still pool of water, its surface as smooth and clear as glass, reflecting the glowing canopy above. "Here," she whispered, her voice barely disturbing the air. "This is a good place to begin. Be still, Silas. Simply be and feel what is here." It was a simple instruction, yet it felt profound. He stood beside her, his body relaxing into a state of patient stillness. He let his breath become slow and deep, inhaling the clean, sweet air of the Vale. At first, all he could perceive was the familiar, gentle thrumming of the place, the deep quiet that he had come to cherish. He focused on the feeling of the air on his skin, the coolness of the morning, the incredible softness that seemed to be its very texture. He closed his eyes, quieting the part of his mind that always sought to name and categorize things, and simply allowed himself to feel. Then it came. A delicate warmth, brushing against his left cheek. It was a sensation as light as a butterfly's wing, as gentle as the touch of a sunbeam on a cool day. There was no source for it. The air was still and the light was diffuse. It was simply there, a localized, fleeting warmth. He opened his eyes and looked at Nora, who was watching him with a soft, knowing smile. That, she murmured, was a kind word, spoken by a mother to her child many, many years ago. She was praising a picture the child had drawn for her. The love in her voice has warmed that small piece of air ever since. The simple beauty of the idea filled Silas with a sense of wonder. Encouraged, he turned his attention back to the air around the pool. He reached out his hand, moving it slowly through the space before him. He found another patch of warmth, this one larger and more diffuse, feeling like the air above a cooling hearth. As he focused on it, a new sensation joined the warmth, the faintest, most delicate scent of sun-drenched blossoms, a fragrance that was not coming from any nearby plant. A feeling of simple gratitude, Nora explained softly. A traveler, much like yourself, once stopped here to drink from the pool and gave thanks for the clean water and the peace of this place. The echo of that feeling has a sweet scent. They continued their slow, meandering walk, pausing every so often for Silas to practice his new way of listening. He began to perceive more and more. Near a large, flat-topped outcrop of smooth, packed earth, he heard the faintest, bell-like chime. It was not a sound that reached his ears in the normal way, but rather one that seemed to blossom directly inside his mind, a single, perfect note of joy. A happy laugh, Nora confirmed with a smile. Two friends shared a wonderful joke here once. In another spot, sheltered by the roots of a great tree, he felt a steady, pulsing warmth that seemed to follow the rhythm of a slow heartbeat, a profoundly comforting sensation that made him feel safe and secure. It was, Nora told him, the lingering echo of a lullaby. The world was transforming before him, or rather, his perception of it was. The Vale was not just a quiet valley, it was a living library of kindness, a tapestry woven from countless moments of warmth, joy, and love. Each step he took was a step through this gentle history. The air was filled with stories, told not in words but in feelings, in fragrances, in the most subtle and delicate of sounds. He was learning a new language, one spoken by the heart. As they began the walk back to her home, the soft light of the Vale seeming to grow a little warmer, Silas felt a profound sense of connection to this place. He was not just an observer anymore. By feeling these echoes, he was participating in their long, quiet existence, adding his own peaceful presence to the gentle atmosphere. He looked at the glimmer motes drifting through the air, their golden light now seeming to hold a deeper meaning, each one a tiny beacon marking a moment of grace. He was truly seeing the Vale now, with a clarity that went far beyond his eyes. Chapter 4. The Still Point of the Turning World. In the days that followed, Silas found himself drawn to exploring the Vale on his own. He would walk for hours along the silent paths, his senses open and receptive, his mind quiet and content. He began to create a map, not of the Vale's physical layout, but of its sensory landscape. He would make small, gentle notes in his journal, sketching a particular tree and writing beside it, "Here the air feels of contentment," or marking a curve in the path with the words, "The sound of a happy sigh can be heard when the wind is still." It was the most unusual and most wonderful cartography he had ever undertaken. During his wanderings, he discovered a place that felt different from the rest. It was a small alcove, almost a perfect circle formed by the trunks of 7 ancient, pale-barked trees that grew unusually close together. Their high branches intertwined, creating a secluded natural chamber. Inside, the usual background hum of the Vale was deeper, more resonant, and the air was filled with a thick, comforting warmth, as if the space were bathed in the light of a perpetual, unseen sunrise. The golden glimmer motes were denser here, swirling in slow, hypnotic patterns. When he mentioned it to Nora, she nodded gently. "Ah, you have found the still point," she said. "It is where the oldest and strongest echoes gather, a place of deep rest." He returned to the still point the next afternoon, seeking that profound sense of peace he had felt there. The ground within the circle of trees was covered in an especially thick and soft carpet of the dark, living foliage, cool to the touch and wonderfully inviting. He sat down in the center of the alcove, leaning his back against the smooth, solid trunk of one of the trees. The warmth in the air enveloped him immediately, a gentle, consistent heat that seemed to penetrate his clothes and skin, soothing his very muscles. It was not a heat that was uncomfortable. It was the comforting warmth of a well-loved blanket. He closed his eyes and simply breathed, letting the unique atmosphere of the place wash over him. The hum was magnificent here. It was a chord made of 1,000 gentle notes, the murmur of countless kind words, the soft sighs of contentment, the quiet laughter of generations, all blended into a single, continuous, soothing sound. It was a sound that vibrated not just in his ears, but through his entire body, a gentle, resonant frequency that seemed to align with his own heartbeat, slowing it to a calm, steady rhythm. The effect was profoundly tranquilizing. As he sat there, wrapped in warmth and sound, he felt the busy thoughts of his own mind begin to quieten. The usual internal chatter, the planning and the remembering, the gentle anxieties and the fleeting worries of the world outside, all of it began to fade. The patterns of his thinking seemed to dissolve, melting into the larger, more peaceful hum of the veil. He was not trying to meditate, not forcing his mind to be still. The stillness was simply happening to him, a natural consequence of being in this place. His awareness settled into the present moment, into the simple physical sensations of his experience, the warm air, the solid tree at his back, the cool ground beneath him, and the all-encompassing, gentle hum. A feeling of profound peace settled over him, deeper than any he had ever experienced. It was a sense of being completely and utterly safe, of being held in a place of unconditional gentleness. His breath became slow and effortless, each exhalation a release of some small, unnoticed tension. He felt a sense of timelessness, as if he could sit there for an hour or a day and it would make no difference. He was simply present, a quiet observer at the still point of a gently turning world. He did not know how long he sat there. When he finally opened his eyes, the soft, pearlescent light of the veil was unchanged, the glimmer motes still performing their slow and graceful dance. Yet he felt changed. A layer of inner quiet had settled deep within him, a core of stillness that he knew instinctively he would carry with him. He felt rested in a way that sleep alone could not provide. It was a rest of the spirit, a deep and restorative calm that came from letting go and allowing himself to be absorbed into a place made entirely of peace. Leaving the alcove, he felt as if he were walking on air, his body light and his mind clear. The normal hum of the veil outside the still point now sounded even sweeter to his ears, and the air felt fresher. He had found the heart of the veil's magic, and in doing so had discovered a new depth of peace within himself. The map in his journal could never capture this feeling, for it was a landscape that could only be navigated by the soul. Chapter 5. An Echo Carried Forth. The time came, as it always did, when Silas knew he must continue his journey. A gentle restlessness, the quiet call of the archivist to seek out other peaceful places, began to stir within him. Yet the thought of leaving the Vale of Murmurs brought a soft ache of longing. The quiet of this place had become a part of him, its gentle hum a familiar and comforting rhythm. He had come here seeking stillness, and he had found it in a way he could never have imagined, woven into the very fabric of the air and earth. He found Nora sitting outside her dwelling, carefully mending a tapestry whose inner light had begun to fade, her fingers working with a slow, practiced grace. He sat with her, and for a long while they said nothing, simply sharing the comfortable silence. The scent of her herbal garden, a mix of sweet leaves and fragrant blossoms, perfumed the air around them. Finally, he told her of his need to leave, his voice soft with reluctance. She listened with her usual serene attention, her gaze warm and understanding. "The veil is not a cage, Silas," she said gently when he had finished. "It is a resting place. Its peace is a gift to be carried, not hoarded." She set aside her weaving and went into her home, returning a moment later. She held out her hand, and in her palm lay a small, smooth wooden token, carved from the pale wood of the Vale's trees and polished to a soft sheen. It was perfectly round and felt wonderfully warm to the touch. "For your journey," she said, placing it in his hand. As his fingers closed around the token, he felt it. It was a concentrated echo, a single perfect note of pure contentment. The warmth it emanated was steady and deep, and holding it felt like holding a small, sleeping bird. He could feel the gentle, soothing hum of the still point emanating from it, a miniature version of the veil's profound peace that he could now hold in the palm of his hand. He looked at Nora, his heart filled with a quiet, overwhelming gratitude that needed no words. She simply smiled, a gesture that conveyed all the warmth and kindness of the veil itself. His departure was as quiet as his arrival. He walked the springy dark path back toward the world outside, the small token warm in his pocket. As he approached the threshold, he paused and looked back one last time. The veil lay serene and unchanged in its perpetual soft light, the pale trees standing as silent, gentle sentinels. He took one last deep breath of its humming, peaceful air, then turned and stepped out from under the sound-dampening canopy. The sounds of the outer world returned, the birdsong and the rustle of ordinary leaves in the wind. Yet they did not feel jarring or loud as they once might have. It was as if the quiet he now carried within him acted as a gentle filter, softening the world's sharper edges. He could still feel the low, steady hum within his own chest, a resonant memory of the veil's song. His shoulders remained loose, his breath slow and even. The peace of the veil was not just a memory, it was a part of his very being. He was a map of the tranquility he had discovered, and wherever he went, he would carry its gentle echo with him, a quiet gift to a world that so often needed it.